13th meeting of the Fairfield RTM. I hope that everyone will bear with us. This is our first time doing this via WebEx, and we're going to do our best. Okay. So I ask for everybody's patience. Again, for RTM members and presenters, can you all keep your phones on mute? And then when I call on you, you can speak. But otherwise, keep your phones on mute. Ideally, you'll also speak through headphones if you can. Just remember, we can hear background noise. When I do call on you, if you're an RTM member, please state your name and your district, just like you would at a meeting. And so there is a chance that because of the storms, it seems to have settled down, but there's a chance that the WebEx could get knocked out if we have power issues. If that's true, give it a few minutes and try again. We'll keep trying to get it going. Hopefully that mess is over and we won't have to worry about it. Yeah. A few things to tell you. Let's see. The computer microphone here. Make sure we're going to try to avoid feedback. So if you're on the phone, which most of you are, your computer will be muted. It'll just be your phone that's listening to you. Try to not use speakerphones. Okay, that's mainly it. You'll hear if the moderate, there's a person from Fairfield IT, Dave Kelly, who's moderating this meeting technically. If you hear a beep, it means he has muted you, and if a double beep means you're unmuted. But we're going to start by trying to have everybody just control their own mutes, and hopefully that works. So a lot of introductory stuff there. I'd like to ask the clerk to do the roll call.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Betsy.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Steve Chesery? Mike Mahoney?
Here.
Veronica Monahan? I think I saw her on. Amy O'Shea?
People may
Bill
have their...
Gerber?
Here.
Karen McCormick? Cindy Pearl? Jeff Steele? Alex Durrell?
Here.
Matt Jacobs?
Here.
Scott Nickel?
Here.
Sharon Pastilli? Laura Carson?
Sharon is here, but she didn't unmute.
Yeah.
Alice Kelly?
Here.
Meredith Oden?
Betsy.
Here.
Betsy, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I think folks may not realize they're on mute, so they may be saying here and they can't be heard. So you have to unmute
I see
yourself.
Meredith Oden. She just popped in the screen.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Marcy Spolier?
Go ahead.
Here.
Josh Garskoff? I see him.
Yeah, he's here.
Joe Siebert?
Here.
Jay Wolk?
Here.
Matt Ambrose? Hannah Gale?
Here.
Thanks. Lisa
Here.
Havey?
Here.
Tamisha Powell Dunmore? Lauren Bove?
Here.
Mark McDermott?
Here.
Jill Vergara? Here. Karen Wackerman?
Here.
Hank Ferentz?
I'm here.
Pamela Iacono?
Here.
Christine Messina? Pete Tallman?
Here.
Drew Georgiadis?
Here.
Rick Brower? Chrissy Kelly?
Here.
Bill Perugini?
Here.
Janine Alianello? Here. Elizabeth Altabelli? Frank Patisse? and Marissa Ringel.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Betsy, did you get me?
Who's that?
Jay.
Jay?
Oh, I gotcha.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Bill, let you know I'm here, but it's kind of screwy here.
Oh, Rick, I found, all right,
Who's
share my grid.
Okay. Okay. I'll ask that we stand metaphorically, at least, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. Please pause for a moment of silence just in recognition of those suffering due to the coronavirus and in thanks to the healthcare workers who are helping them. Okay, thank you. Before we start, I just want to thank the town's emergency response team because I think they've done a terrific job with everything. And I think that's why our town is not as overrun as it could be with the virus, and I'm so grateful to them. I'm sure we all are. So we're going to turn now to item 2 on the agenda, which is the approval of Eric Newman. I'll read the resolution. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment to the Employees Retirement Board as recommended by the First Select Woman. Eric Newman, Democrat, 85 Eastfield Drive, term November 2019 to 2024. Can I please have a motion to approve this? You can unmute. Sharon Castilli is moving and Mark McDermott seconds it. Mr. Newman, would you mind just introducing yourself? Luckily, we all know you. Most of us know you well. But if you could just introduce yourself and describe your background as it relates to this position.
Sure. I'm Eric Newman, 85 Eastfield Drive. For the past 9 years, I've been working for the city of Stamford as the accountant and treasury manager. In this role, I oversee the treasury department as well as the accounting of the pension plans. I also serve on several of the pension boards. I'm a trustee on the Classified Employees Retirement Board, about a $220 million pension fund. I also serve as a trustee on the OPEB plan, which is another retirement plan. I'm also a trustee on the 401A and 457 plans, as well as the city's investment advisory board, which oversees the bond investments of the city. Prior to going into government finance, I worked for Royal Bank of Scotland as a financial analyst in one of their lending businesses. Did that for a number of years. Prior to that, I was at IBM Global Financing as America's balance sheet lead analyst, analyzing their financing division in Latin America, U.S., Canada. Prior to that, I worked in the hedge fund industry where I started my career off. Worked in real estate, started off in the distressed real estate area back in the early 90s. Then I did a tour over at Price Waterhouse where I became a CPA, and then I went back to Soros Fund Management, worked on their global private equity fund. That's pretty much my background.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Newman?
Can I say something, Karen?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Go ahead, Jay.
Thanks, Karen, Madam Moderator. Knowing Eric Newman for so many years and spending so many years, even when I started, my first election on the RTM was with Eric. I can't think of anybody better suited for this position. He is fourth most honest and second most pleasant to deal with. So I'm sure the board that Eric is going to go on, and I hope we can all vote in favor of Eric going on the pension board, would be a great. It's going to make our town a lot better having Eric on the board. Thank you, Eric, for stepping forward. Thanks,
Thank
Karen.
you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Any other questions for Mr. Newman or comments? Okay, we're going to take a vote now. I'm going to ask if everyone can unmute, because we're going to do a voice vote. I'll give you a minute to unmute. Okay. Oh boy, that's
If you're on two devices, please only unmute one of your two devices.
Hey, Rick Brower here, just testing. Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so, sorry, that's me doing that.
You're muted, Karen.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening here.
Somebody has a speaker and a microphone that are near each other and it's creating a feedback loop.
Correct.
And we cannot hear Karen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Eric. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Eric.
Great job. Way to go,
Okay,
Eric.
can you,
Happy to have you on board.
Eric.
Yeah, congratulations, Eric.
Okay, can everyone mute, please, again? I apologize for that problem with my phone. We're going to move to item 3 on the agenda. This is the Mill Hill School resolution. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Amending and Restating the Resolution Entitled, A Resolution Appropriating $22,600 for the costs associated with the renovation and expansion of Mill Hill Elementary School, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, to increase the amount of the appropriation and this bond authorization by $1,274,900 to a total of $23,275,500, consisting of 4 pages, be and hereby is approved." Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Representative Kelly, seconded by Representative Durrell. Mr. Quinn, the chairman of the Mill Hill School Building Committee, is on the call. Mr. Quinn, would you mind giving us a brief explanation of this item?
Am I coming through?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You can't hear me?
Okay.
We can hear
yeah.
you. Yep.
Okay, good. I always wonder, I'm a Neanderthal with computers. But this is the DD estimate, almost the final before we go to construction. And the first estimate you do with any type of school building is called a systemic estimate, SD. And you go and you look at the school, you look at the specs, and you try to understand what you have to correct and change, okay? And you make up an estimate in terms of dollars through the architect. The only big problem with that is that it's not done all the way down, drilled down, so that everybody understands what they are looking at. At the SD estimate, we came in at $22 million. By the time we hired architects, engineers, and a variety of other third-party sources to go in and explore, we then found out what we had to change and how much more it was going to cost us. And really what this represents is an increase over the original estimate by around 6%. And that reflects better understanding of what we had and what we're going to have to do. $500,000 is due to the site work changes, and another $700,000 was due to interior systems, primarily the HVAC piping underneath the school, as well as the control systems. Okay, so that's really in a nutshell the $1,275,000.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from the body? If so, please enter it in the chat box so I can see who would like to speak. I'll give it a minute, half a minute. Okay, it looks like there's nobody who has a comment or a question, so we'll move to the vote. Can you all unmute? We're going to do a voice vote. Okay, looks like everyone's unmuted. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. You can mute again. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Congratulations. We're all set with that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move on to item 5 on the agenda. Item 4 on the agenda. To hear, consider, and act upon the following bond resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance, entitled A Resolution Appropriating $6,245,000 for the costs associated with the construction of the Eastern Turnpike Pump Station and Force Main Replacement, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, consisting of 3 pages, a copy of which is on the materials on the website, and were furnished to everybody here. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Jill Vergara has moved. Mark McDermott seconds. Mr. Carey, are you on the line? Brian Carey? Brian, are you on the line? Don't know. So perhaps Brian Carey is not here. The acting director of DPW was going to explain this to us. Brian is not in the list of participants. I guess he's not here. So I'll ask for comments and questions from the body. We don't have Brian to ask questions of, but does anyone have any comments? Indicate, please, in the chat box. Give it another second. Okay, no comments. So we'll move to the vote. Can you guys unmute your phones, please? We're going to have a vote. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Please mute your phones again. Doubling here. And we'll move on to item 5, which is related to item 4. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. To hear, consider, and act upon the following bond resolution entitled Supplemental Resolution, consisting of 1 page, a copy of which is attached to the materials, stipulating that the debt service on the Eastern Turnpike Pump Station and Force Main Replacement bonds, as it becomes due, shall be paid by the WPCA from its own funds. And the obligation of the WPCA shall be set forth in a memorandum of understanding with the town, satisfactory to the first select woman. May I have a motion to approve? Josh Garskoff?
I
And a
second.
please. Marcia.
Georgiadis.
Oh, okay. Georgiadis seconds. Okay, thank you. Any comments on this motion?
Madam Chairman, this is Town
Yes.
Attorney Jim Baldwin.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Baldwin.
Good evening. There's a technical change to that resolution that was made at the Board of Finance meeting, which stipulated that instead of saying satisfactory to the first select woman, satisfactory to the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Okay. So the resolution is so amended. Any questions or comments before we vote? Okay. Can everyone unmute, please? And we're going to take a vote. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Please put your phones on mute again. Okay, we're moving now to item 6 on the agenda. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as mandated by executive order issued by the governor of the state of Connecticut. Representative Vergara has moved to waive the reading of the resolution. Is there a second for that?
Joe.
Representative Jacobs. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve this, to move this resolution, to approve this resolution?
I make the motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. And who was that who made the motion?
Joe Siebert.
Joe Siebert, okay. And second,
Lauren Bove.
Second, Lauren Bove. Okay, thank you. Do we have any discussion?
Is there are we going to substitute some of the language in this? Do we need to make a motion to do that?
You need to use the chat box, folks, to be called on if you want to speak. Is there any, let's see, Representative Vergara?
Yes,
No?
I'd like to make a motion to amend per alternative 1 in the materials that were emailed to us today and are now in the backup, the first alternative.
Okay. Anybody like to second that?
Yes.
Representative Havey has seconded. Thank you. We'll move to discussion.
May I clarify which one this was?
Yes.
It's the deferment program for all taxpayers, with the exception that landlords must qualify to be eligible.
Okay. Thank you. And now we'll move to discussion. If anyone would like to speak or have a question, please enter in the chat box because I can't see all of you at once if you want to talk. Wow, everybody's quiet. Jim Baldwin, would you, Mr. Baldwin, he's the town attorney, would you please speak, let us know what the basic idea of this motion is?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Be happy to. Good evening, everyone. The governor's executive order 7S requires all municipalities in the state to adopt one of two options for relief to taxpayers in the municipalities for property taxes. You can approve one or both of these options. The first option is the one that has been moved for a deferment program for taxpayers, as opposed to the other option made available by the governor, which was the reduction in the tax rate of 3% to all taxes for 90 days. With the deferment program as proposed and now before you, the program would allow any taxpayers who have not already paid their taxes or had taxes which have been escrowed into a bank account, have those taxes deferred for 90 days so that they would not be due until July 1 without penalty. As of July 1, those taxpayers would be obligated to make their April 1st tax payment, or otherwise they'll be subject to the 18% delinquent rate. All taxpayers under this program who owe taxes from April 1st through July 1st are eligible for tax deferment of those tax payments. So that in the town of Fairfield, unlike many other municipalities, when the July 1 tax payment comes due, taxpayers will likewise be able to defer that payment until October 1st, and such that they'll be obligated to pay the July 1 the taxes that were due on April 1, but the July 1 taxes can be pushed back another 90 days, at which time they would have to be paid along the same lines. This is being recommended to apply to all taxpayers for several reasons, the most important of which is probably the fact that it's a very cumbersome program to otherwise require people to apply for this relief in the short period of time allotted for the tax collector to collect all those requests. And two, there may be several people who would otherwise be eligible and very worthy of receiving this benefit who might not apply for various reasons. Just they're not savvy enough with computers, or they just don't know about it, or they're dilatory in trying to get it in time, which is the end of this month. So that's why the administration is recommending this program be applied to all taxpayers, except for landlords who would have to meet certain criteria to show that they're passing on their savings to their tenants.
Thank you. Representative Vergara, you have a question for Mr. Baldwin?
Yes. Hi, this is Jill Vergara. Jim, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Okay. I had a question about this special requirements for the landlord. So we're expanding this deferment program for all of our homeowners, all of our taxpayers, except for the landlords who have to fill out an affidavit. I thought that this was necessarily so from the executive order and the guidance that we received. Is there a reason why we're including a specific requirement in this?
Well, if you apply the program to all taxpayers, then technically they don't need to apply. They don't need to qualify because it's just a blanket deferral, if you will. But with respect to the landlords, the OPM, through the governor's office, recommends that landlords still apply to be sure that they are passing on their tax savings and benefits onto the tenants. So as the governor's executive order first proposed, there were qualifications or criteria that individual taxpayers and businesses would have to meet in order to qualify for the program. But with this proposal before you, that's not necessary for residents, for individuals and businesses other than landlords.
Right. Okay, so for the landlord, though, we're just clarifying that in our language to make it clear to our landlords, because it was already clear in the executive order, the guidance, that if we chose as an RTM to expand this to everyone and make it universal, that landlords would still have certain rules the affidavit requirement would still apply to them, but we're including this language about landlords to just for clarity's sake?
Yes, absolutely, for clarity's sake, because the recommendations or the clarifications that came out from OPM were based in a different document, and I think that this is important that everybody know clearly and without it questioning whether or not it applies to them.
Thank you.
Meaning the landlords, of course.
Thanks. I have another question. Is it possible for me to ask, or should I wait for others to ask questions?
As of now, there is no one else asking a question, so why don't you go ahead, Jill?
Okay. Thank you. So Jill Vergara for District 7. Jim, are delinquents, tax delinquents able to still apply for relief under the deferment program?
You would, with the resolution before you, you would be speaking only to landlords with that understanding. The answer is yes, but only for the taxes that are due for April 1st. All other taxes are not waived. There's no amnesty, if you will, for any of those taxes.
Okay, it would be taxes due for April 1st or July 1st, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Siebert.
Thanks, Karen. Hey, Jim. Understanding that this executive order does not include individuals who have their taxes in escrow, and I totally understand why that is. I just wanted your perspective as to what other mechanisms, because I can only assume that there's a large percentage of our constituents, whether Republican or Democrat, that would like to have that same deferment option that is not available under this executive order. And I totally understand why. But do they have other means so we can respond to our constituents as to how they can, how we can help them? That's all. Any perspective?
In the context of the governor's executive order, no, I don't have anything to add to that. There are other statutory provisions that allow for certain people to request a deferral of their taxes, but that's not this topic. That's not covered by this. But those taxes have already been paid,
right?
Understandably. So I guess the short answer is no.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. If you don't mind hanging on, I wanted to ask Ms. Bossy if I know she did prepare some materials that were included to the RTM that address some of the financial implications of this vote. So, Ms. Bossy, would you mind going over that?
Sure. On the last page of the handout was the option one. We talked about some assumptions clearly. So about 50 million of our taxes due this quarter, 25 million or so are escrowed, so they're not applicable to what we're talking about today. So we're talking about the other 25 million. So what we had to do was to make some assumption as to who would take advantage of this program. So what we did was we assumed at the top part of the sheet was that 25% of the people would pay in April, and that was about 6.2 million. As of today, just to let you know, we've received in about 8 million since April 1st. So that number is actually even higher than we had estimated in our assumptions late last week. So then we have an outstanding balance, and then we, again, made an assumption about who would pay in May, and we again, made an assumption of about $5 million would come in. So the bulk of that money would then be outstanding. What we would lose in this option is investment loss on that money that we will now not have until, in theory, the end of June, maybe July 1. So right now, the state of Connecticut investment fund rate is a little bit less than 1%. So I use that as a benchmark, saying that if this money is outstanding, that's how much, and on my assumption sheet is about $27,000 per quarter is what we would lose. The second half of the sheet is option 2, which is the low interest rate program. Again, same assumptions, because I wanted to keep it apples to apples as to who would pay the escrow dollar amounts and the interest that we would in fact earn by those monies coming in for those months at the 3% annum level. So that's another $40,000. So in theory, I mean, they're not big dollar amounts. I think for the benefit of the taxpayer, it really goes a long way as to picking the deferment method, as our tax collector has conveyed to us, him being on the front line of hearing from people, is really people, our taxpayers, are looking for a deferment, not a low interest option, but actually a deferment. So that would be the financial analysis of option 1 versus option 2.
Thank you very much. I see Representative Vergara would like to ask you a question.
Yes, hi.
Jill
Vergara for District 7. Hi, Caitlin. Thank you for being on the call with us. I just wanted to clarify, so it's $27,000 per quarter, and that's for the maximum amount that you're estimating that the town would have to lose for these relief programs. So you were accounting for the full expansion. This was even if we expanded to everyone possible, this estimate. Correct?
Caitlin, are you there? You might be on mute. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so there are some assumptions in the model at the top of the page. So we assumed who would pay, because we really don't know who's going to be paying in April and in May and in June. So we did make some assumptions as to who would pay, and we assumed that we would get $6.2 million. And as of today, we've actually collected $8 million. So our assumptions are low, but this is not assuming that nobody would pay out of the $25 million.
Okay. Representative Gale, you had a question?
So the deferment, when you're saying that escrow is not included, is that all residents who have their taxes paid through escrow accounts through their banks?
Correct.
So those people are not going, so escrow continues to be collected, right? So even though there may be something in an escrow account, the escrow is on every single mortgage payment. So that option gives, the majority of mortgage holders no deferment whatsoever. Whereas correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the percentage lowering would give that to those people as well. If I said that correctly.
Correct. The amounts in escrow are not part of this deferment program.
But would they be with the second option?
No. The amounts in escrow, and Dave, our tax collector, could speak better to this, but those are not in question in either one of these programs.
Thank you.
Representative Vergara has another question for Ms. Bossy.
I just wanted to follow up with the question I had asked previously, because I do want to make sure I'm relying on the cost estimate that you gave us as $27,000 per quarter, and I was told that it was the highest amount that we would be paying for these relief programs. So I just want to clarify. So that's what I was asking. Do you stand by this number with the resolution that we're passing for expanding this out to all of the taxpayers, that your cost estimate is $27,000 per quarter?
That 27 per quarter has some assumptions built in. So that's not the worst case. That's not saying if we do not collect 25 million. We've already collected 8 million. So we know that that 25 million is not even the worst case scenario at this point, because we've already collected $8 million. So we had to make some assumptions that some people would pay, and the assumptions were that 25% of the people would pay in April and 20% of the people would pay in May.
Okay, so you're saying that as of now, since we've collected the $8 million, that it would be less. Your estimate would be less at this point.
I'm saying, given my assumptions right, yes, that April number, that paid number is now at least 8, and we are at April 13th. So that paid number is conservative for the April number.
Okay, and that would result in not $27,000 in investment loss. That would be a number that would be less.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Ringel, you had a question?
I did. I just want to clarify that every individual resident is getting a tax break with, although they're not getting it with, if they have an escrow account with their taxes through mortgage, they will be getting a tax break through the deferred motor vehicle tax, sewer tax, and those other it says municipal water, sewer, electric rates, charges, and assessments. So that will apply to everybody. Is that correct?
Yes, as those are due July 1st, that's the second installment. David Kay, do you want to speak to that as well?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Maybe. Yeah, Dave is the tax collector for the town. Dave, that would be great to hear from you.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, yeah. So just to clarify, we're talking about the April 1 due date, which would cover fourth quarter installment real estate, second installment sewer use. Then we get to the end of the fiscal year. It would also include the start of this upcoming fiscal year, the July 1 installment. That would include first quarter real estate, first installment motor vehicle, and first installment personal property taxes, the taxes for a business in town. So in a sense, yes, this does cover everyone in town because, yes, 50% or so escrow, and it doesn't apply to them for the real estate tax, but everyone in town that gets taxed on their motor vehicles, it would apply to them when they get taxed on their car tax in July. It would be deferred and not due until October.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin, I think, wanted to jump in on that as well. Jim?
Yeah, based on the question as it was asked, I just want to make it clear that it's only for those people who nevertheless choose not to pay those taxes. So it won't be automatic in the sense that people will get the benefit of it. They only get the benefit if they choose not to pay the taxes.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Georgiadis, I think you have a question for Mr. Kluswick. Let me say that wrong. Are you there?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah,
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I just wanted to ask you to clarify some of the language, relief versus deferment, because I know we're not getting, there's no tax savings per se, except maybe whatever interest. So if you could just reiterate the terminology that we need to use with our constituents to make sure that everybody is, that there's clarity and no misunderstandings. Thank you.
Sure. So I think the proper language would be deferment, because we're not giving them a break, and it's more or less temporary relief, because they're still paying. If they have a $2,000 tax bill due on April 1, they're not paying less than that. They're just paying $2,000 on July 1 instead of April 1. So if the word relief is used, it should probably be, it should include the word temporary relief.
Thank you.
Representative McCormick, you have a question? Representative McCormick? You may be on mute.
Sorry. Representative McCormick, District 2, a question for the tax collector. Is there a plan at this point to make a notation on the July tax bills notifying the taxpayer that they have this option?
Yes, that would be in the works. Our printing vendor that we work with, they've already been working on templates in terms of how the bill would actually look. And also we would most likely include an insert in the bill as well to get the taxpayer's attention and make sure that they're aware that there has been a change.
Great, thank you.
These are all options to consider.
Representative Gale, you have a question?
Yes, sorry, Hannah Gale, District 6. So I'm just thinking of my constituents, and, the budget and the mill rate that they pay is, based on certain services from the town that have been suspended, including, education. And so I am wondering if there is going to be, any, repayment of taxes, that are collected and when services are cut.
I'm not sure I understand that question.
My point is that, the residents pay taxes, particularly, the vast majority of the budget is, goes to education, as we all know, and those services have been discontinued. And now we're talking about, there's going to be, furloughs and layoffs, and, certainly there's less expenses being incurred. And in fact, those expenses are now being incurred by the residents as they're taking on the burden of education. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of, plan to examine that in the long term.
I guess, I can let Mr. Baldwin address that, but I think we have payments that we have to pay for this budget year, and then a question of going forward, how next year's budget will be a different thing in light of what's been happening. I don't know if that addresses it, but I'll let Mr. Baldwin, is there something you can add to that?
No, I think you summed it up. I think that's a larger question that's being looked at by everybody through the budget process, but in terms of the resolution before us, it's not really, with all respect, germane to that subject.
Okay, thank you. I see Representative Georgiadis would like to respond to that comment.
I would just like to say that I have been very impressed with the Fairfield Public Schools to keep online education, starting the online education, getting the teachers on board, keeping our students, maybe not this week because of spring break and all, but it's really, I have been really, really impressed. And I can say that because my sister is a teacher in Northern Nevada, and because her district does not, all the students don't have the kind of technology access that ours do, they've had to cancel school. So back to just saying that Fairfield Public Schools have not been canceled and are doing their best in these difficult times to fulfill their obligations. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Iacono?
Thank you.
And is still running. Other things are not. The beaches are closed, open space is closed, the library is closed. I just would like to point out that I think Hannah raised a good point, and, you know, we aren't getting services that we paid for, and, you know, what's the return there? Is anybody thinking about that? I'll just throw that out there.
Representative Vergara, you have another comment?
Yes, I'd also like to say that I'm glad that we can help people in this way with this relief. I don't think it's doing enough. The tax collector has written in his memo that he's receiving 20 calls a day for people who can't pay their taxes. And I'm very happy to extend this relief, but it just doesn't seem like enough. And I do think that we need to be looking at ways to save money for our taxpayers now. And I'd like to hear from our first select woman and the CFO about steps we've taken to save our taxpayers money at this time. It's crucial. People are hurting, and this all needs to be shared by us. We all need to pitch in with this. We need to lower costs for everybody.
Thank you. Representative Pistilli?
Hi, Sharon Pistilli, District 3. I just wanted to respond to the general discussion. On the one hand, I do think that we are receiving more than sufficient services from the Board of Education. I've been quite impressed with my daughter's online learning. She's a junior. She's very motivated, is feeling very connected to her teachers. So I don't think that anybody should have any bone to pick in that regard. And at least over the short term, for the services that we're lacking with some public services being closed, we also have to recognize that there are other public services that have been driven into that are in overdrive, that are working really hard to meet the needs of our community, including Health and Human Services and the Department of Health and our emergency management team. So while right now, no, we don't have libraries and parks, we do have all of these other services that are really trying very hard and incurring costs and looking out for us. Ultimately, some of those costs will be reimbursed by the federal government, but over the short term, you know, we do have a functioning town government that is delivering services for the taxpayer dollars that are being collected. And I do think, you know, long term, we are going to have to go lean and really prioritize every dollar, you know, because this is going to be, you know, an economic situation that we haven't, you know, we haven't seen. So everyone has to keep in mind, how are we going to prioritize the revenue that we do have coming in, and there'll be less of it. Thank you.
Thank you. First Selectwoman Kupchik is on the call, and she had a comment. Brenda, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm actually speaking into the computer, not the phone, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
What did Jill ask? I'm sorry. What are we doing for the town? Well, we're doing a number of things, Representative Vergara. One of them was to furlough or lay off a little over 100 permanent part-time employees who are collecting unemployment now. So that is one thing, and we are looking to do some other things as we move along. Obviously, we have most of our town employees, the large majority are union employees, so not all are, we don't have that flexibility. But we do have, and as Representative Pistilli mentioned, we do have our government working. Everyone is performing their jobs. So in that regard, just as a side note, and we'll be looking at other cost savings as well. But I think it's going to be a more balanced approach. It's not going to just be cutting things. It's going to also be looking at some of the things that we have available to us as the community.
Thank you. Representative Perugini, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Representative Castilli. I applaud the effort of all teachers, everyone included with our public school system, and certainly all the government workers. These are unprecedented times. That being said, I want to echo the comments made by Representative Gale, Representative Iacono, and Representative Vergara. We are making tremendous sacrifices. The libraries will create ways to help offset the burden. Again, I appreciate everything that is going to come from this executive order from Governor Lamont, but I do think we need to find creative ways to offset or to offload that burden on all of the taxpayers who are certainly not receiving the services that they are accustomed to receiving, and all for good reason.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Representative Carson. Laura, did you have a comment? Laura Carson? Laura, you're on mute. Okay, we'll skip Laura for now and go to Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you for Selectwoman Kupchak. It's very nice of you to be on the call and to be answering our questions. This is also a question for Caitlin. I'm hoping that, and I'm glad that you're taking steps right now to address the current economic situation, but I think it's important to get it down on paper and post things. I'd like to make sure that there's some transparency, and it would be great to see some analysis that's going into steps that you're taking to address payroll and furloughing and tracking people's the work that people do while they're at home. And there's a bunch of other issues of possible restructuring. Brian Carey seems to be doing a fantastic job as both conservation head and DPW head, which is saving the town money, which is fantastic. I question whether now is the time to hire a DPW head. So those kinds of issues, I'd really, it'd be great to see the list of people we've decided to furlough and have it just out in the open.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on this item?
Can you hear me now? It's Laura Carson.
Yes. Laura, yep.
I do want to echo what Jill said, that we have no idea how bad this is going to get and, you know, how long this is going to last. And I'm just afraid so many people are really, really going to be hurting. So I would like to see some of the, costs be offset by our taxes that we're not getting our services. But I do understand how important and how great a job our emergency management team is doing. So I do feel for the taxpayers, and we can't forget how hard it is for these residents. The people, one day we're doing just fine, and then the next day, all gone. Mm-hmm. And I do want to thank First Selectwoman Brenda for really, really, really clamping down on people and really emphasizing the social distancing, how important that is. It makes me feel so good that we need to be all together on the same page so we can help one another. So thank you very much, Brenda.
Thank you.
I'm done.
For Selectwoman Kupchak, you wanted to make another comment?
Yes, just to respond to Representative Vergara, some of those things, Representative, are personnel issues, so we wouldn't be, posting a list of people. Those are confidential type of things. I can give you numbers and we can give you figures, but obviously, and it's not about transparency, it's about people's privacy issues. We don't want to put a list of people's names we laid off out, and that's obviously a protected issue, personnel issue. But we are doing a lot of things, and we're also, there are things we will be doing in the coming year after this budget is passed regarding negotiation of contracts that are coming up. So that's obviously not going to impact anything right now, but there's been, let's just to say, there's been a lot learned through this process by myself and my administration, and I think we'll be able to do some very creative things that I think will help our town in the years to come, and restructuring ideas, but those aren't things that will materialize before anyone passes a budget right now. But just to be aware, just to be clear with everyone, we are very, very cognizant of what's going on with the financial situation and how this is impacting our community. I mean, having our parks and beaches closed for just, you know, whatever period of time to protect the community's safety, I don't think that is a small part of what our services are. We have, you know, we have solid waste and recycling. We have police force, fire department, tax assessor's office, tax collector's office, Betsy Brown, land use, building department, finance department, and people are, you know, working, and we're all working under very different circumstances, but everyone is working. So I think, you know, we're getting our services. There's some things that are currently not available to our community, and that's because of public safety. But again, we are very, very aware of what's going on, and we've given suggestions to the Board of Finance, and we hope that they'll work directly with myself and my administration and our finance department, and I hope that the RTM would also as well. So that's all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Vergara.
Yes, Jill Vergara. Brenda, I totally understand that you can't give private information, and I knew when I was asking that you wouldn't be able to give us names, but I do think it's a good idea to have numbers of people who you've furloughed and have that out in public knowledge, because it's good to know that you're working on this. From my perspective, I haven't been hearing any of this information, and it's incredibly important to be tackling this issue right now. It's our economic situation, and we need to know as a town that you're facing whatever is going on currently with our economic crisis, and that you're taking steps right now, not just with the fiscal year 21, but right now to lower costs for everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to stop this line of discussion now, just because we will be talking about the budget soon, and we're getting into that area, I think. So, but thank you very much. Actually, Representative Pastilli, you wanted to say something, or you're okay? All right. Are there any other comments on this motion regarding the tax deferral before we go to a vote? Any other comments or questions for the tax collector or the acting finance director? Okay. So we're going to move to a vote. If you guys could all please unmute your phones or your computers. Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion as made, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Was that somebody saying they were opposed? I couldn't hear. Someone speaking, but I'm assuming that's not to me. Anyone abstaining? Okay. So it sounds like the motion carries unanimously. So we have a unanimous approval on item 6, and thank you to Ms. Bossy and everybody there who was helping us. You can all mute your phones again now, and we're going to move to items.
Karen,
No,
you can't hear me, can you? Oh, sorry, I couldn't remember which color it needed to be. Sorry.
So we're going to move on to our last item on the agenda, item 7. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as authorized by the governor's executive Order 7C, and I will welcome any motion to not read the entire resolution if anyone would like to make that motion.
I would.
Okay, thank you. Who's that? Representative Wolf with that?
Yes.
And Representative, okay, and who would second that motion?
I'll second it. Representative Gale.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if Mr. Baldwin can please address this item and explain what we're voting on.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly, it ratifies what the Board of Finance and the RTM have proposed already for an amended budget schedule. Otherwise, we would be in violation of the town charter and possibly state statutes. And this is, again, per executive order, which allows us to fast track and modify by way of delaying by 30 days certain votes, such as the annual budget meeting, which is proposed in the resolution to be postponed by 30 days to June 1 instead of the first Monday in May. So that, in essence, is what this is taking care of.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions or comments about that? Okay, so, oh yes, Representative Vergara, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, Jill Vergara, District 7. Hi, Jim. I just wanted to make sure that once we do ratify this and once we do get more permanent dates from the Board of Finance for all of their budget discussions, that it will be posted online for all of the public to see, and that our town's website will be updated for the budget page.
Yes, unquestionably, all agendas and meetings need to be posted within the FOIA requirements, and that will absolutely be followed, subject to minor changes such as tonight, where we were able to add the resolution alternatives in less than 24 hours before this meeting, as allowed by the governor's executive orders. But otherwise, we are trying to comply with all FOIA requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to vote on it. If people could unmute their phones. Representative Vergara, did you have another question?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to check about the Board of Finance public forum. I know that the two dates that we're voting on right now it's our vote on June 1st, and that the Board of Finance will vote on or before May 11th. But has there been a decision made for the Board of Finance public forum, whether they can do it electronically?
Yeah, I think the understanding is that because it's not a classic meeting, in-person meeting, that all public comments are being welcomed and posted to the Board of Finance's website or somewhere else on the town website, not just on a specific date certain, but from this point going forward. So that's serving the role or the replacement of that public meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to a vote now. Please unmute your phones. I still see some muted. There's a few that are still muted, so if you could unmute. Okay. All in favor of the resolution as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I had a point of privilege, if I could.
Oh,
quick.
yes, Mr. Wolk.
I'll make it quick. Jay Wolk, District 5. I'll make it short and sweet. I just want to say to everybody, including you, Madam Moderator, and our first Select Woman, that I just pray that we all stay safe through this time. And in my heart, I know we're going to get through this. And I really, really want to thank First Selectman Kupchak for everything that she's done up until this point. So thank you, and I pray that everybody stays safe.
Thank you, Representative Wolk. The first Select Woman would like to make a comment.
I would just like to commend each and every one of you. You actually passed a bunch of stuff in less than 2 hours. You have to teach the Board of Finance a lesson or two. Bravo, RTM. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. I'm really
We try.
And there's 40 of you. Look at you. You're all great.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Representative Pastilli, seconded by Representative Durrell. Thank you very much. Please all stay safe, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at our regular meeting. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Karen.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.